Good morning. Well, we're broadcasting live again from the First United Methodist Church here in Sebring, and we're working within our God at Work series. For those of you who don't know what that is, our God at Work series is about business people who come in a panel, and they discuss how God influences their life at work. And it's been very interesting so far. We've done it for 2 weeks. This is our third week, and we're really having a good time. I'm John McClure. I'm a local attorney here in town, and I'll be the moderator for this series. Today we have with us Don Elwell, who is the Director of Marketing and, what was the other thing, Don? Communications at the Allen J Automotive Network.
That's correct.
We have John Payne, who's with us from Mark Palmer Electric, and Jeff Carlson from Carlson Accounting. So we're delighted to have the gentleman here with us. We'll be talking about how God is at work at their work. And so I can't wait to get started. Before I do, though, just a general word. At the bottom of your screen, if you have a question, it tells you how to ask that question as we go along. So there might be some matter that you would like to have addressed by one or more members of the panel. We'd be happy to do that. The other thing I'll do is put a quick plug in for the Methodist Church. We have what is called the Strangely Warmed Coffee Company, named Strangely Warmed for our founder. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. For our founder, John Wesley of the Methodist Church, who, when he received the Holy Spirit, said he felt strangely warmed. So we thought that was an appropriate thing to do. These beans are imported from Peru. They are organic beans. We roast them right here at the church. We grind them here at the church. And we sell the coffee beans here at the church, either ground or whole. We also have a trailer selling fresh coffee each morning, Monday through Friday, on Ridgewood Drive, right next to the bicycle shop, Legacy Bicycles, and across the street from McClure and Bozo, I might add, right? Get that in, too. so
across the alley from Carlson Accounting.
And across the alley from Carlson, that's right. And quite a ways away from Mark Palmer Electric. Sorry about that.
Good trade.
Vehicles drive by daily.
Yes, yeah.
At any rate, if you wonder what this coffee's all about, feel free to stop by and get a cup, and then you'll know. So anyway, we're very glad to have everybody here, and we're ready to get this started off, I think. The first thing I want to talk about is obviously how maybe your business has been affected by COVID-19. I think we've all suffered one way or another through that, and our whole world has changed. Obviously, the way we do business has changed right now tremendously, but yet we still have opportunities for witness. We still have knowledge that God is with us through all of this. And so, as with any disaster, God is always there with us to help us through. So I would like to start out with the first lucky winner, who's going to be Jeff. If you, yes, sir.
I love winning too.
So, do you have any thoughts on how COVID-19 has affected your business and how God has worked with you through that?
Our business, the COVID-19 thing hit right at our busiest time of the year, so it was kind of difficult for us to decide what to do. In the midst of that, due dates were changed, so we had to adjust. What we ended up doing, we're always careful during tax season because of the general flu, so we're always cleaning, but this time we took extra steps. I'm a hugger, so most of my customers that come in are handshakes and hugs, so many of them stopped doing that. We also put some plexiglass up, which from our front counter, which I hate because it takes away from the family atmosphere that we all try to perform, but we have to be as safe as we can. My dad, who's 82 years old and immunocompromised, I sent him home the 1st of March, and I set a couple of our employees up to work from home. So we actually stayed open until April 15th, and then we closed the lobby down on the 16th, and the plan is to reopen on May 1st. So everyone's answering the phone and still working, but it's had a pretty big impact. I think God has always, not always, but we're blessed that we're able to stay working. The employees, we talk about safety every day, and I think they feel we're all blessed that we still have customers that support us, and we still have the ability to work and make a living. And I think everyone's really, really happy, and thank God for that every day. And no one's been actually affected yet by the disease. So
Especially thank God for that.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Yes. So, Don, how about you?
Well, I mean, we've, of course, the Allen J Automotive Network is it's similar to what Jeff was saying, because we've got, 400-ish employees in total. We're labeled as an essential business all the way from sales to service and body shop and everything. But it's dramatically affected business. It's dramatically affected the employees. One of the things that we've seen quite a bit is just the different. We've got employees that are fresh out of high school or college, all the way up to seniors that are driving some of those vans. They're driving by Legacy bicycles and McLaurin Lozo and all the other places. But they, so we've got people that are just at different levels of vulnerability. And so one of the things that I think that God has really just kind of done, but he's done it very, 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 very quietly, is he has given us just a great sense of comfort. He's given us just a good sense of, I'm here, I'm letting you folks, I'm just guiding you through it. And so everybody, at least in my department over there at the Kia dealership, everybody stayed focused. Everybody stayed pretty much on task. You really wouldn't know, except for a few different, we don't do the Monday morning meetings like we used to do. We don't do those types of things, and everybody stays just a few feet away from each other as we're going through the buildings. But the overall sense of purpose and comfort, I think, really has helped direct and get us through to this point. We're looking forward, obviously, to things becoming a little bit more normal, hopefully next month. But at this particular point, I would say that God's had a great hand in kind of steadying the ship during these tough times.
Well put. And John, what about it, Palmer, Mark Palmer?
Yeah, again, being air and electrical, we are deemed an essential enterprise as well. And when the shutdown began, we were still quite busy and weren't necessarily feeling effects. I think our staff, were fearful, not only for themselves but for their families. We had some real concerns as well for the customers that we served, and we didn't want to be that agent of transfer or transmittal of the disease. So we began to institute some procedures to reduce that risk quite a bit, and to ensure that we're meeting our obligation both with our customers and with our staff. I think it's easy probably to get caught up in the fear, the naysayers out there, and how terrible things are going to be and so forth. And I know that from us in our hearts, if God's love is there, right? That's the most powerful force in the universe. And so when you do that and then sit back and count your blessings, it's going to be okay, right? We're going to have a little slowdown. We're going to face the now problems now. The future, that's going to be handled, right? So we do that. We take the necessary kind of important things in terms of not being an agent of transmitting the disease, and go out and serve our community, because just because folks are at home doesn't mean things don't break or they have needs, and so we want to be there to address those needs and bring them comfort.
Well, when the temperature's 90 degrees outside and the air conditioner breaks, that's
Yes.
something that's a now thing.
That's right.
No comfort there.
Right.
That for sure is a now thing, yes. Well, I have an interesting Bible verse that I came across, and here's what it is. This is from 2 Corinthians 1, verses 21, 22. And it's, we're not alone. He's invested in us, and we honor him in the way we work. So how would you feel God is invested in you, in your business? Kind of a hard question, but what in the world is that man asking? Well, I'm asking this. When Jeff, as an example, you have your own business. You're a certified public accountant. How did you feel when you first opened that business? How was God invested in you? How were you invested in God when you elected to open that?
Our business actually opened when I was in high school in 1986 by my dad. So as a 16-year-old, my mind was probably not where it should be or where it has been.
What?
But I'll tell you, the decision to come back here in '96 with my wife was to raise our children, and we wanted to be in an environment that was safe, wholesome, and still had the value of "In God We Trust." And we chose to come back to First United Methodist Church because I went to kindergarten right over there. And in this building, and not this building, but that building, and can remember trying to jump that wall on the swing set when I was 4 years old. So I think he guided us to back to this spot after college so that we could live a better life and follow his word and do what we needed to do for our family and now our customers.
I think that's a very interesting observation. So often in bigger cities, God is not given the credit that he needs to be given. And people talk about the South, and people talk about our biblical values and that sort of thing, which I wear with pride as opposed to an insult, which is sometimes is intended. Because I totally agree with you that Sebring is an absolutely wonderful place to bring children up, and the family values can be brought out here and that sort of thing. So Don, how about you? Do you feel that God is invested in your life, and how is he working with you?
Absolutely, and I have a couple of roles, as many of you know. I'm also one of the 5 Highlands County Commissioners, and so this aspect of it, I would say, probably even applies to the commission side more so, in that I think that again, that it's you have to be an example, and I think God has worked through myself and because there's to lead by example, to try to be that calming force as much as you possibly can to people that are just very, very concerned with what's going on out there. I think in our work, in our everyday aspect, there are people that are upset about things that perhaps aren't as important, but they're important to them. And they'll call about different things, or they'll text me, or they'll message me on Facebook, and they're very much upset. And so in the span of an everyday, of every work day, both at L&J and then of course through the county commission, there's a lot of times where I think God has worked through me to be the kind of person that doesn't try to stir it up and doesn't try to make things worse than they are, but to be that calming influence, and to try to see all the sides and give the guidance that you possibly can. And that guidance is maybe coming from my typed words in some cases, but it's coming from God. I mean, it's literally guidance that is being fed to me. I have a pretty good working relationship, I think, with God, and I think it comes out quite a bit in just some of the ways in which you just deal with situations and problems as they occur.
I know that you hold, maybe not lately, but unless you're doing it by Zoom or something of that nature, but you held some town hall meetings on occasion.
Yeah.
And so naturally that brought out a lot of people that had issues and concerns and that sort of thing. Did you ever fall back on your spiritual background in answering any of those, or did you feel like some of the people there recognized God working in their lives through the political situation? You
do, and I have. Probably at any of those meetings, I'll have 80 to 100 people that'll actually attend those meetings, and they're all across the board. You look at different party and ideology, and certainly different places in life, and as far as their relationship with God. Like I mentioned, I'll see those. I've had thousands of interactions, I would say, over just even the last a few months, and during this particular crisis, with people that have taken something that they see on the news, or taken something that they'll hear about, or something in the community, and then they'll just go spinning right off there. So to be able to get people to understand, you know what, now is not a time for division. If we're ever going to be united, if we're ever going to be working towards anything, we need to unite behind God. We need to unite behind each other and come together as this community. And as Jeff had mentioned, and you just mentioned a while ago, this community is incredible. It is a quality of life that you have here that you don't have in other places. We may not have the Sam's Club or the theme park or whatever, but the quality of life for raising your kids, for raising your family, for being able to have that feeling of community with your neighbors, and then of course to live your life in the footsteps of God, I think is tremendous here, that potential.
Good point. So John Payne at Mark Palmer Electric, that's a small business.
Yes, sir.
You don't have a lot of people there. how's your sense of community there and the spiritual climate? What is that like at Mark Palmer?
It's, I'd say, best described as familial. You know, we're kind of looking out for each other, you know, being each other's keeper, and to that extent too, we've divided our crew in half, so that if one individual is exposed or it requires quarantine, then we can isolate half of the crew and continue serving the public. But I also think that, you know, when we experience an event like we're experiencing now, unless you're 100+ years old, you've never seen anything like this before. So it is quite unique. It can seem overwhelming, right? But at the same time, it's really an opportunity. So it tests us, right? It's going to see who you are. It's going to test your faith. But it's an opportunity for you to kind of look inward. Something as simple as counting your blessings, but kind of reinforce who you are and how you walk with the Lord, how He influences your life daily. And, you know, be more human. Extend that humanity to your community. I think that's key. So something as simple as, you know, fixing someone's shorted circuit, you know, to an air conditioner, say, for instance, you know, you can perform that act, but you can also distribute that humanity to that individual at the same time and enrich them and restore their faith at the same time. So I look at these types of events as I know they're kind of horrific. I mean, people are losing their lives, obviously. But it is an opportunity for us nonetheless to kind of reinforce all of that, to understand who we are and the strength that we carry within ourselves.
You know, something you said there, you didn't quite say it this way, but I think back on the biblical scripture that the Lord's Prayer says, give us this day our daily bread. You know, it doesn't say, give us all that we can possibly use and that much more, so our children will always be financially secure and we can have anything we want in this world and that sort of thing. But yet the world teaches us that's the way to go. You know, to accumulate, to be successful, we accumulate wealth is the number one definer of success in the world. To be successful in God's eyes, on the other hand, I think is to obey Him and His promises and to be faithful to Him. So that's an interesting observation, but how do we input that into our lives? Do we ever sacrifice future wealth in order to help someone here today, to give away some of our wealth to help others rather than to selfishly hoard it all, I suppose is the best way to put it. So along those lines, do you have any examples of things you might have had occur to you? Anybody want to take a bite on that one?
Well, one thing that I've always, I look at the Bible as this guidebook that has a simple, it's complex, but the simple statement is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I try to do, everything I do, I try to look at that way. It's difficult to do sometimes because I think how they're actually going to come back to me, or do I want them to do what I want, what I feel I would do with them. So the example at work would be, I deal with the IRS on a regular basis, and I deal with some state auditing agencies and things of that nature. So sometimes we'll have customers come through the door, and in the course of me getting to know them and hearing what their goals or objectives are, I determine that this isn't the type of person that I would like to do business with, because I want to be able to sleep at night. I want my customers to be able to sleep at night because I know that I did the right thing. And I will actually have in the past and will continue to escort. It doesn't happen often, but I would escort them out and say, thank you very much. Here's a list of a couple of people I trust in the community that you can call. I choose not to do business with you.
Yes.
And that's a perfect example of making a decision that's going to affect you financially, but morally it's the right thing to do.
Don?
It's interesting, and Jeff, you pulled out your overarching, look at this, look at that.
Thank you.
Strangely warmed right there. Jeff will take the check when you're ready.
The fount of all new ideas.
The one overarching principle that I pull out of the Bible, which again, there's so many sub-themes, if you will, but I think the one overarching one is love thy neighbor. And that is the one that I do my best as much as I possibly can to find that consensus, find that some people make that overarching principle very difficult to follow. And sometimes, you get wrapped up in the now. You get wrapped up in that current battle, and you don't take that step back. You don't do the count to 10 and take a step back and then find a way to be able to love that particular neighbor for whatever they're saying or doing. But I've found that is something that as you get older, you get a little bit better at it. As you get older, you get a little bit better at being able to just clear the mechanism a little bit, clear everything that's going on around you, and be able to literally see the good in just about everybody, see where they're coming from, see what the direction is that they want to go, and see if you can possibly assist that person in getting there and working together to be able to get to an end there. So through the Allen J. Automotive Network, through the commission, through everything that you probably that I try to do, I feel like I've come a long way in that regards, and that goes, of course, even to managing your people at work, to dealing with them, to be able to understand that when they come into your office, sometimes they're already kind of hyped up and amped up, and they're ready to go, but you've got to be able to take some time out for them and understand where they're coming from, to see their perspective. And that goes back to that overarching biblical principle of love thy neighbor.
I think that's a very interesting observation you had. And sometimes when you love your neighbor, you find your neighbor a little more likable.
True. True.
Than when you act
Yeah.
like you really feel like you should act,
That's true. Yeah.
It seems to work
Not every
that way.
time, but yeah, certainly most.
Especially on social media sometimes.
Yeah. There's a few tough neighbors there, for sure.
Well, when Christ came, he came and who are the people he sought out? He sought out the despised people, the rejected people, the weak people. He didn't say, hey, somebody call up the governor, okay, I need to have lunch with him this afternoon. We got some important things to go over, or anything like that. He witnessed, and his ministry was to those who needed him. And he said, I didn't come to cater to the well, I came to heal the sick. An interesting version of that to me is we're all sick. If you think about that, we all have our issues, and some of the neighbors that have come to see you suffer from that as well.
Sure.
And we act out in different ways. So John, let me ask you this. Along the lines of what Don was saying, how at your office do you show love as opposed to some other things? How do we show our love?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the human condition is ripe with opportunities at conflict. And the more stress we're experiencing, especially in times like now, it makes it even more so. And I think Don said it exactly correct. We just have to breathe. You have to pause. Take that breath. Remember who's walking the walk with you, and try to live in that light, right? I mean, I think when you do that, you gain perspective. And when you do that, because the important thing in terms of communicating with someone and trying to avoid conflict, in other words, you want your message heard, obviously, right? That's the reason you're crafting the message. But we need to be more thoughtful about how that message is received, correct? And so by bringing it back into spiritual terms, and I think Jeff said it too, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So when you take that perspective internally, then you're better able to craft that message properly, right? To reach that person, not at the surface, but into their hearts. And I think that helps us, especially with these types of times, get through it. And it's that spiritual side of who we are that allows us, with integrity and purpose to accomplish that.
Excellent. Yes, I agree. Okay, last question. Before we wind it up, we got just a few more minutes, and that is prayer. You know, sometimes we say, God, what is your will? What is your will? What do you have me do? I'm flummoxed here. I don't know what to do. Or sometimes we maybe forget to go to God with that. Oh dear, what am I going to do? You know, and so we call our friends, or we turn it to ourselves instead of going to God with that. Have you ever had a time when you did the right thing, and you actually did pray to God, and you felt like you got His answer? You're shaking your head, yes, John. So let's hear from you again.
So, and I'm sure I'm not going to tell anybody here anything that they don't know, but in our day-to-day lives, we get so wrapped up in the immediate needs and the pressures, and I'm going here and there, and you're accomplishing things. And so, you know, hubris is a disease we all can suffer, right?
Yes, it is.
And so, you know, we can beat our chest and say, I've accomplished this, I've done that, and everything. But all of us humble ourselves.
When you're on the knees, yes. You're
All
right.
of us. And that's the reminder I think that we need. And we need that daily.
Humble ourselves in the sight of the Lord. Even a great song. Yes. Okay. So, anybody else got anything to add to that?
You know, you mentioned hubris, when I first took off to college at USF, my first semester, I was administratively dismissed for a 0.7 GPA, which was not one of my proudest moments, but it's nice to talk to kids about.
Is that even possible?
It's difficult, but you can do it.
It
I went
sounds
on to
like
get-
Animal
I went
House.
on to get several more, but I had to go back to community college in Tampa, and I remember my first test. I finished and turned it in, and I prayed and said, God, please, I need to do well because I didn't do well before. And as I was driving home through the industrial park in West Tampa, I was thinking about that, and I kind of get chills to this day because it's one of my favorite stories to tell. As I was driving around the corner of the industrial park, all black, all industrial, there's a huge billboard on top of one of the warehouses, and all it said was, pray, it works. And I got an A on that test and continued to do well. So that one of the most inspirational things for me, you know, going off to college thinking, yeah, I got this, and then you don't.
That's, part of that is found in the Bible again. It's in Second Lacerations 32:7, which says the Lord helps those who help themselves. So studying helps a lot in that regard.
He sent me a little to study every night.
Exactly. Well, Don, before we wrap it, do you have any final comment?
You know, I don't have a GPA story like Jeff's, although I did drop out of high school and dropped out with like 5 months to go, which is not something that I was terribly proud of at the time. Ended up getting a GED and got a bachelor's and did all that fun stuff, but was quite the underachiever as a younger man. And I pray pretty much every morning. Mine is done in the shower, which no one needs to visualize, but it's done every morning, and I did it again even this morning. And when I pray, I pray. You know, we all pray for the small stuff, but primarily it's the bigger things. It's not so much the what is going to affect you today or whatever. It's you know, I pray for priorities to be set straight in my life. I pray so that I can look at and I can find that balance, and I can find that balance with family, and you know, you pray for those types of things, because that's I think what is far more important than just being able to pray that I can afford that new Xbox when it comes out. You know, for the boys, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, it's for me, but mostly it's for the boys, and so you know, I feel is really that's where I'm doing most of my praying right now. I pray for the relationship between myself and my wife to be as good as it possibly can. And I mean, those are bigger overarching things. And so I believe that God has heard those prayers as I go forward, and the smaller stuff kind of takes care of itself.
I totally agree that our most precious possession, if we will, is our family, our loved ones, and our friends, our relationships. You know, the two commandments you mentioned earlier is love the Lord your God with all your soul, heart, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said, if you can do those two things, guys, the rest of the world takes care of itself. And there's a lot of truth to that. It's just the hardest thing in the world to do, that's all. Those minor things like that. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this week's session, God at Work. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Tune in on Wednesday morning, 8 a.m., and we'll be back with a new panel. I certainly wish to thank Don Elwell, John Payne, and Jeff Carlson for being with us today. Your insights have been terrific, and we really enjoyed this week's session. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.